Yep, here we go. Great. So I'm Gemma Sampson. I'm an advanced sports dietitian, and today I'm chatting with Till Schenk. Have I pronounced your last name right?
That's pretty damn good, actually.
Yeah, that's good. He's a bit of an adventurer, a really cool story, and he's been using Supersapiens for a good few months now, including in some interesting, the Stupid 7 Everesting project. And so I'm really curious to hear how that's influenced what he's been eating lately. So how did you get onto the Supersapiens, and what did you find doing that with your Stupid 7 Everestings?
Well, I got onto it through a friend, actually, Trav, who I know from years back working with him. He was working a different job at some of the triathlon teams. So that's how I knew him. And then he contacted me about Supersapiens when he heard about the Stupid 7, the idea of Everesting 7 countries in 7 days. And he was like, well, I've got this thing, Supersapiens. It reads out your glucose. You get it in real time. It influences how you eat when you during training, recovery, and everything. Like, let's collect some data. So we started doing it there. It was very short notice. I didn't know much about it. So basically, early stages, I had that glucose patch on my arm and or reader, and you could check your phone and gave us data on where the glucose is, where it should be, and everything, which was really interesting during the Stupid 7. But the key was really the last couple of months now using it on a regular basis, because the system kind of learns your habits and your eating habits, your training habits, your sleep habits, kind of adjusts accordingly where your glucose levels should be, and so on and on. And so now I have an understanding of what to do with the data.
Yeah, and so you say it's on the back of your arm, and then you just leave it. That you like, does it? How's it? Is it just literally stuck on your arm like a band-aid, or how does it actually?
The jumper's too tight, I think.
He's trying to show me. Here
you go. So it's the same thing that's used for diabetes patients, right? Just basically a different app built around it and behind it. And I did not prepare that, actually. It's pure chance, because I'm a lazy person. I haven't cleaned up after the last parcel arrived. So I've got some spare monitors here. So this is what they look. I'll just unwrap it. Unboxing. So it's basically just those two parts. And you would take the cap off, put it in, and then it just there's a spring inside that's preloaded, and you just push it on the back of your arm, and just a quick pinch. It's a very tiny needle that goes into your arm.
Yeah.
And then it sits there for 2 weeks until it needs to be replaced.
And it doesn't matter if it gets wet?
No. I shower with it. I swim with it. I ice bathe with it to be in the trend. Follow the trend. So yeah, and then they're working on an interface right now with I believe with like Garmin head units and Polar and everything that's out there. At the moment, it's still an app, which is awesome for training and everyday habits and so on. Obviously, in racing, you don't really carry your phone with you and check the app in between, right? So that's where you're going to have the interface with the Garmin, and you're basically going to get a message. Listen up, your glucose trend line is about to drop. So time to eat, which then once that probably works, should mean that you've got a note of you need energy soon before you actually feel it.
Yeah, which is interesting, because like a lot of the times when I'm working with people, they're like, oh, I'm not hungry, I don't feel like I need it, and then 20-30 minutes later they just fall off the edge of the cliff.
Yeah, but it's like at the same time, there's the math and the testing on how many grams per kilogram body weight and so on you want to consume per hour and everything, but that's still guesswork. So you might be overloading and everything, which I had terrible experiences with during the Stupid 7.
Like in terms of, and this is interesting, because I always talk about like with guidelines, like recommendations are a starting point, but then at the individual level, you might need more or you might need less, which is always where that whole like test and adjusting comes in. So this sounds really interesting in terms of that specific how much. So what were you doing during the Stupid 7 then?
Well, so I've done a lot of testing beforehand, like racing Ironman races, which nutrition works for me, like which brand, what kind of nutrition and so on. So I'm very much a like up to Ironman distance, very much of a gel and liquid kind of guy. So that's all good. And I figured out which brand works for me, and there's huge differences for me. So all great. So we were like, cool, this works. So we'll just do the math for an Everesting and calculate. We were planning the 7, so we didn't want to push it. So we were planning like 16 hours a day. Turns out 16 hours a day to get the amount of calories in that you need for an Everesting purely on sugar very quickly gets your stomach to the point of, so
you need so many calories. That's where like the type of event is totally going to influence the type of foods that you're going to want to eat as well, because it's going to be, the speed is a bit different. If you're doing 7 Everestings in 7 days, it's going to be a completely different speed to, like you say, like an Ironman speed.
It's the coolest thing about like doing the ultra distances and stuff like that. It's like the things you learn, and it's like, I find it super fascinating. A lot of people think I'm stupid. Like I get this smile, and I understand on my face, and my eyes light up. I find it super fascinating though. So like during the Everesting, trying just sugar basically, like sports drinks and gels and everything. I literally, on one of the repetitions, I came up top of the climb, and the crew was there, and I was like, guys, I think I'm going to throw up soon. And I literally made it to the bottom, and on the next climb, I just violently threw up 5 times, like no control, right? I mean, 2 times I just managed to stop the bike. The other times wasn't even a chance to stop the bike. And obviously it's not great, but it's not that kind of like I've got food poisoning kind of thing or something. So I lost like 30 watts about that. But then it stayed like that. So about 2-3 hours later, the stomach had recovered. I could eat normally again. Couldn't keep a gel or anything in anymore. So the sugar in that version was done for the day. But the energy remained at that point of like 30 watts below what it was. So yeah, it's been super interesting to. So
like if you then stopped with the gels, what were you eating instead during the stupid 7?
Pancakes.
Pancakes.
Pumpkin soup.
Yeah.
Oh my God, pumpkin soup with like a proper broth in it and son. Now that was a game changer.
Well, it'd be good because you're getting like carbohydrate. It's relatively easy to digest, but also there's fluid and then probably salt too. So then you're getting a mixture of different components that are all important for not only keeping you fueled and energized, but keeping you from getting too dehydrated.
Yeah. Plus, we were seriously like out of luck with the weather.
Yeah.
So I mean, like all 3 days were just absolutely freezing. 2 days had a ton of rain and everything. I mean, like.
When was it? Was it September or October?
So it went from the last days of September into the first days of October.
Yeah.
So we finished it off on October 3rd. And that day it was hideous. I was riding the warmest winter kit I had for cycling, and yet put on mountain jacket and mountaineering pants and everything just to and at that, even there's like, so we had Oliver with us to shoot a documentary about it, and he was like, whenever you can, like shoot little cell phone videos of like how you're feeling and everything. And I'm a hopelessly optimistic guy on the bike, but there's this one video of me out there, I'm like just shaking on the way up. I'm like, I'm actually not sure how to do this today, simply because it was just so cold. So all that came together, and man, pumpkin soup became a big friend.
Had you done an Everesting before that?
An indoor one.
An indoor one, okay, yeah. Oh, that was in lockdown, wasn't it?
That was in lockdown, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So, like, what did you use to fuel the indoor one versus the outdoor one?
I don't want to talk about it.
Why not?
Oh my God, there's photos of it. It is shocking. So basically, I came from my trip through Africa, came back, caught some stomach bug, didn't train for 6 weeks. Then we went into lockdown. And for the first 21 days, I couldn't motivate myself to do anything. I was literally just sitting on my butt on the couch and just, like eating and drinking and not exercising at all. So there's those pictures of me eating a Nutella peanut butter sandwich and like the biggest gut I've probably ever had, and like just proper fluffy. And there is me with my Nutella sandwich and like peanut butter just to add a little something to it. So I had a lot of Nutella and peanut butter sandwiches during that. Yeah, some gels.
Yeah.
But
and this is the thing, like it's always going to be influenced by where you are, what you're able to access, and especially I think with those longer, slower efforts, you've got the capacity to digest fats a bit easier. So sometimes, like you say, that peanut butter, the Nutella, there's a bit of sugar in there as well, but it's tasty, it's easy to get down, and you're getting energy that's not just purely carbs.
that's the one thing. And the reality behind it is that I just didn't need to think about it because I knew I had to make it through that one Everesting. That was it. And let's face it, an Everesting on Zwift compared to normal Everesting is a present. It's, you know, it's a walk in the park because your avatar descends by itself. So
oh yeah, because you can hop off the bike and you just let it go.
every time it descends, you've got like, I don't know, those 6 minutes or whatever it was, or something like that, where you like, oh, I'll go to the bathroom, I'll take the black roll out, take care of my back, we'll eat a little something. And I also knew that I was going to do that. And then I'm sitting here in lockdown. So who cares what's the next day, right?
Yeah.
Very different for if you plan 7 Everestings in 7 days. The thought process is like, how do you get as efficiently as possible through the day, but at the same time, basically start repairing the body already while I'm breaking it down.
Yeah.
And have food that allows me to sleep as quickly as possible in the evening or fall asleep. So nothing that wakes me up, nothing that's too heavy on the stomach and keeps me awake at night, and so on and on. So that was
really, like, and that balance with the fiber as well, because then you don't want to go too much on the fiber and then having to stop every like hour to go to the toilet.
But that's the problem about like projects like that, like the ones that go on and on and on for a longer time, because there's only so long you want to go without protein, without fiber, all those things that are hard on the body. Like if I race an Ironman, for the last 3 days, I cut the protein to an absolute minimum, a very little fiber and everything. And then you've got that race day that is, depending on the course, somewhere between whatever, 10 to 12 hours. And then that's it. But if it just keeps going on for days and days and days, at some point, your body will break down if you don't have the protein, if you don't have the BCAAs and stuff like that coming in. You know, you need the fiber at some point. So yeah. Very different.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's where like that planning and testing stuff out becomes really, really valuable. And obviously you're not going to do a practice run of 7 Everestings for 7 Everestings. But like, okay, maybe you're going out and doing like a 10-hour ride and practicing like, how does this sit? Like, does this work? And then again, the next day and then seeing how that sort of carries on.
Yeah. And like things I didn't expect, like I've always been the kind of guy who like, I kind of ate a little bit what I was craving and what the body felt like.
Yeah.
Turns out I don't do a lot of yogurt, but I was really craving some skyr during Everestings for the morning because it's got a little bit of sugar in there. You know, you're like kind of chronically in low blood sugar anyway, so that's great. It's got a nice taste and everything. Did not work well with the long-term exercise. Nope. Sorry. Dairy, not on the menu anymore.
Yeah. Was that sort of like your vomiting days?
I think that all came together. It was basically a skyr breakfast followed by a ton of gels.
Yeah. Maybe the combination of the fact. And so like when you're doing or planning those sorts of big adventure days now, like what are your thoughts and how you would fuel that?
It really depends on like seriously how much effort is going into the individual day. So like when I did Africa, it was 21 days straight without a rest day or anything, and it was hot outside and everything, but it was kind of just ticking over the legs. So there, I really didn't think much about it.
Yeah.
Because you know that you don't ever have any like physical stress on the digestive system or whatsoever other than from the nutrition, because the heart rate is low, the blood isn't pumping super fast, none of that.
It wasn't done as a race then, was it?
Not at all. This was purely
there was no time pressures. Yeah.
No time pressure, no goal where to sleep the night. I had my tent with me. There was plenty of desert around, so sleep wherever. So that was great. Very different for everything that's coming this year. It's like it's such a diverse portfolio of projects. Some of them like 2-week adventures with very different disciplines on different continents, and that's going to be the fun one. And honestly, I'm still playing around with it. I'm still trying to figure it out. I mean, one of the big things for me will be to get the system as fit and as functioning as possible before heading there. Because the more I do that, the more I know I can cut out the things that the body generally needs, but kind of gets away with not getting for a certain amount of time, but helps me, like to have easily digestible things and so on. So basically, again, cut down a little bit on the protein, cut down on the fiber and everything. But that only works if the system is right before. So beforehand, it's going to be hardcore focus on just getting the digestive tract clean and firing well and all those things. It's going to be a lot of self-supported stuff. So again, clean body is super important beforehand, because the cleaner the system, and that's something I assume there's science behind it. I wouldn't know it, but I know it for myself, and I tried it out enough. If my system is clean, if I eat clean for a long period of time, and I clean the system with probiotics and everything and get ramped up, I know I need less nutrition. I need less physical food with me, which means carrying less stuff with me, which means less weight on the trip. Again, means wasting less energy, schlepping stuff around and so on. So that's all going to go into the calculation of that stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so with using the Supersapiens at the moment, like I know you've been doing like these little tests about different foods. Like I've seen, like I think about the pineapple and like a high GI breakfast versus a low GI breakfast. So like what have you learned? What sort of foods, firstly, have you been doing with those tests, and what have you been learning?
There's no real surprises, to be very honest. It's the feeling you get on a long day on a bike anyways. You have a high carb breakfast and you get hungry fairly quickly out on the bike because you just burn through it. You have a high fat, high protein breakfast on days where you don't have to smash it out the gate. It lasts way longer. I ride on water way longer before replenishing with like any carbohydrates or whatsoever out there. So that's the given. So there's been a lot of playing around with oatmeal in the morning with like apple in it and so on, which is known to spike the glucose levels in the body and that kind of stuff. A little bit of maple syrup on it, versus a breakfast that's maybe some like goat cheese and avocado and some eggs and things like that, and some nuts. And definitely got it's especially I've got like at the moment I've got a lot of not too much effort long ride days, and for those days I'm now at a point where I'm almost cutting out any kind of carbohydrates for breakfast. So it'll pretty much be a handful of nuts, like half a goat cheese, 3 eggs, an avocado, that kind of thing. If I know,
it's all that periodization of foods, because like you say, the carbohydrates, the intensity, but then if you wanting to go long and slow, then you want to be efficient and using the diesel engine essentially, and using fats. And so by fueling with fats, you help that process along. You frozen me then.
what was I frozen or were you frozen?
No, you were frozen. I wasn't frozen.
Interesting. But it also says that my internet connection is unstable. It just said that. Okay. We're back. So we were talking about the periodization.
I was just talking about periodization and how, like, with it all comes down to that. You say that intensity, where high intensity, speed, carbs, but then you want to be that diesel engine for the longer, slower, constant. And so by fueling with those fats and proteins, you help that process along.
That's what does my head in about all those nutrition trends and everything that's out there, especially in the world that we live in with like endurance athletes and everything. All those dietary trends and so on, they might work great for your everyday person, but not if you're going 15, 20, 25, 30 hours of training a week. It just isn't. There is a purpose for fats, for protein, for carbohydrates, for everything in the body. They interact with each other and so on. And that's why I don't understand why people go like completely and like, well, no, I need to be all keto or whatever. I'm like, no, there is times for certain things, you know, just because for my long ride breakfast, I'm now not eating carbohydrates. That still means I'm far, far, far away from the keto diet, you
Oh, for
know.
sure. Yeah.
Because I 100% refuel with carbohydrates after the training and everything. You know how it is that it helps transport the proteins actually to where they need to go. So yeah, like people who don't put any carbs in, that's the thing, like protein powders. No carb protein powders. Money out the window. But yeah.
Yeah, it's like they've all got their place, but if you can get it from food first and foremost, it's tastier, it's better for you, and it's the more natural you can have your diet, the better for sure.
Yeah.
And have you found like with using the Supersapiens and seeing how different foods affect like your blood sugar levels and stuff, like have you found that has been changing your food habits and what you eat and make you think twice about it?
So basically, I don't know if it comes across on the app or not. I got to show you. Okay. So it's basically, this is the home screen of the app, right? This is kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
So you've got your glucose levels up here. You've got sort of a grayish bar here. That's your target zone. And then you see how it goes along there. So I'm kind of like, when I eat, you see a couple of highs that was just after eating, obviously, or so glucose goes up in the body when you start exercising because the body starts accessing it. It starts the second you get up, you get out of your lying down position in the bed, there's going to be a quick spike and so on. You learn all that. But so the goal is to just keep it in there. And like looking at that screen every once in a while, I'm like, there's this goal of like, I want to be as close as possible to my target zone. You know, it's a competition.
Try to be perfect.
So it is a great reminder. It just makes me think so much more. Like yesterday, I was meeting a friend and it was like, oh, do we drink a coffee? She's like, oh no, I had so much coffee already. It's like, all right, let's have ice cream. And literally while getting ready for the ice cream, I'm like, no, you really don't need ice cream right now. In the past, it always would have been, hell yeah, in with the ice cream. Now it's like, rethink it. No, I really don't need it. I don't even crave it that much. Like, I will still give in to crave. I feel like I really want it right now because I've got this addictive personality that's then going to carry that thought of ice cream around for 5 days until I finally give in. So why torture myself for 5 days if I know one ice cream a month will do it?
Yeah.
But it makes me think a lot more. It makes me think in the supermarket, what am I buying? What am I not buying? Snacking. Holy snap. You know, it's like those like corn crackers or things like that. Oh, just like a small bag. Yay. And you're just like, I was like, okay, interesting. It makes me think a lot more about when I eat, especially after training. Yeah. So, you know, there's more and more research that suggests that after training, the more you can prolong the process of refueling the body and so on, the more the highest effect of the training and so on continues in the body. One of the reasons why if you take supplements with vitamins and certain things, you shouldn't like straight start the repair process because you interrupt the natural body's repair process, which essentially is the idea of improving. Yeah. But I also know that my biggest immune system killer is starving myself. Yeah. My immune system instantly goes down, done and dusted.
Yeah. It's a common thing, especially with people going low carb. It's very, very common for it to impact your immune system, and especially after like really high intensity training, it can compromise your immune system then too.
Yeah, and it's basically my immune system has been kind of not ideal ever since a severe form of glandular fever. So for years and years and years now. And at the moment, it's the coldest temperatures we had in winter in Girona in a long time. I by far have the highest training load, and I haven't been sick in basically since I started using the app. Because right now, it's rather than waiting to the point where I start getting hungry after training session, I'll just monitor and see the point when my glucose starts dipping or like trend lining to a constant down rather than an even in the target zone. And then it's where I go like, okay, pushed it far enough now with the training effect and everything. time to replenish a little bit. So it very much influences my behavior a lot. Yeah.
That's interesting. And have you noticed, like, because then if you're like snacking less and stuff like that, then perhaps your overall food intake is dropped. Like, have you noticed that's affected your weight at all?
Yes. So weight's going down. I expect a lot more to happen from here on out. So I'm just coming back from shoulder injury, so I wasn't allowed to do any strength training and everything, which we all know is super important as well. Also, like burning calories and everything. Like my upper body doesn't have any muscles left now after 10 weeks of inactivity for the upper body. So there's no extra burn in there or whatsoever. But yeah, the weight went down and the energy levels just went through the roof after probably adjusting the food for about 4 to 6 weeks, I want to say. Like, I'm training harder than in a very long time, like very specific. It's January. I'm way in the 20+ hour training range right now. And that's not factoring in stretching hours and stuff like that. And yet I haven't been that efficient in the work I need to do at home, working on my projects, planning projects, computer work, catching up with people, just being alert all throughout the day. Huge change happening there right now.
Because like, talk about like what you eat on the bike and stuff. Are you eating more or less when you're on the bike now?
I'm afraid to say, in case my coach listens to that, way less.
Less. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, like what would you like eat as a standard during like some of these, like you say, like doing these long rides? What sort of foods would you eat?
So I have that bigger breakfast before heading out, and then frankly the first 2.5 hours I'm basically on water. Yeah. Depending on the route I pick. If I come by a nice cafe I like, there might be one coffee stop in between, but still no calories. And then after 2.5 hours, depending on how I feel, I either start eating a banana, which is sort of like slower release carbohydrates, or if I can feel I pushed it a little too far, I'll have a gel. I still in training, like even in everyday training, I keep the intake of a little bit of gel and sports drink up just to have the body used to it constantly and so on, because I know that it's exactly the product I'll use in racing. There are sessions now where we simulate the whole racing situations where it will be only that, but then I'll also start fueling after 30 minutes. And it's a little bit different. But yeah, I might like, so if you take my typical route, like on Saturday was big breakfast, water for the first 2 hours, 10, then a coffee. After the coffee, another 20 minutes, about that. And then I was like, okay, went a little bit too far here. So one gel after 2.5 hours, that was the first carbohydrates. Then after 3 hours, got to Escala, bought a little bag of cashew nuts. So then I had some cashew nuts, something the body could just play with for a little bit for a long time. And after 3:30, started drinking a sports drink in the bottle over the next hour, roughly like that. After 4 hours, another gel. And then admittingly needed an emergency gel. It's wrong. It's not an emergency gel. I could feel how I was getting tired, and I was about 30 minutes from home.
Yeah.
And it was just the point of, on a normal day, I would have easily ridden it to the end. But I also knew that on Sunday, there was another 5 to 6 hour ride. Yeah. So putting that gel in was basically in my head already part of already replenishing. Yeah. And then
exactly, which I think it's good. I think it's a good practice to get thinking, not just what am I doing and eating now, but what do I need to eat to prep and prepare for tomorrow, because what I eat now is going to influence tomorrow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's not just that. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on with different projects, with planning the continents and some projects beforehand and the commentary work and all that's happening right now, that the days are really full. So I basically get off the bike, I quickly just sit for like 10 minutes or something, just calm down, have my shower, put some food in, but then I need to be good to go again.
Yes. And that's definitely where a bit on the more aggressive side, the recovery can be helpful to avoid being a little bit lightheaded or fuzzy or lost.
Even there, like, super interesting, playing around with the glucose, playing around with the food, playing around with my recovery smoothie. So I was trying to figure out, like, with my recovery smoothie, like, how does it affect the body? What do I put in there? What do I not put in there? And it's like, okay, again, taking out some of the fruit, adding some avocado and more nuts and some chia seed and things like that.
Yeah.
Less of a spike in the whole thing, and more like different sources of energy. So I've got the fruit, some dried strawberries and a banana and some stuff like that in there. Which is sort of like that instant access after training. So I stay alert because I don't have that hour to like go and then be back because I need to jump into the next conference call whatsoever.
Yeah.
But then I would crash. But now I've got the avocado and the nuts and everything in there. So there's this late release energy that's coming in there. And suddenly it's like, oh yeah, great.
Yeah.
I love working with the app. It's amazing because it just like it let me play with the food I eat and with the snacks. I'm done with snacking basically. It barely ever happens.
That's interesting.
Yesterday I bought snacks for the first time in a very long time. A bag of nuts.
Because even when you are snacking, it's changed the types of foods that you're buying for those snacks.
Oh yeah. Yeah, completely. Very different. Also, like the whole mindset of like, what's a reward? So I had yesterday after I finished the ride, amazing training week, 25 hours, fulfilled every session as the coach wanted. I had a great work week, got everything done that I wanted. So after the ride, there was this feeling of like, I'm going to treat myself now. Yeah. That used to be ice cream or pancakes or something like that. Yeah. Now it was tuna tacos at horse category.
And the thing is, like, sometimes these sorts of foods, they can be like they're held like sort of really tasty, but maybe a little bit more expensive foods. They're like, oh no, it's too expensive. But actually, you eat it and you really, really enjoy it. So like if you're going to spend your money on something, like, okay, well, like ice cream versus like some, like you say, like some really tasty, like nutritious tacos, go for it.
It's the funniest thing. The Supersapiens app literally is saving me money because I'm just realizing now, thinking about and learning so much more about the food I want, so much of the takeaway food I used to get just has stuff in that I don't really want in my food. Either. So I've been cooking way more at home and I've been going out way less and so on. And I think that's also what creates the feeling of like, ooh, doing that once a week horse category tacos now, that's a real treat now.
Yeah.
And it's great. Yeah.
Because like with you cooking more at home, like what would be your default? Like, I don't have to think about it. This is what I'm going to cook for dinner meal.
Wow, that's a very good one. That is so all over the place. It's not even a dish. It's your classic sort of like lazy person leftover throw stuff together kind of thing. So there'll be like some buckwheat or quinoa. That I will probably just like fry a lot of tomatoes into sort of a thick tomato soup and then just throw vegetables in there and like some, I at the moment, I just love playing with like either goat cheese or mozzarella. Okay. Like throw fresh mozzarella in there, just like last minute, don't melt it or something. Things like that. So yeah, working. I'm not a vegetarian, so I will have some chicken or something, or like a nice piece of salmon or something on the side with that. And yeah, then I got my quinoa or my polenta or something like that for the carbs. I've got my veggies and everything in there. It's super easy to eat and to season. Like homemade tomato, like a thick tomato base. I mean, it's still got pieces and everything in there, but you just toss a ton of garlic in there and onions and chili and so on. And it's so easy to make it tasty, and it's so quickly done.
That's the thing. I think I think often with people is just finding a couple of key recipes that are, you don't have to think about it, but you know, if you chuck all these things in, it doesn't really matter what's in the fridge. Like if I use these flavorings, it'll make it taste good and combine well. And often it is so much faster than like ordering takeaway or like walking to buy a takeaway or something instead.
I've very much come to the habit now to have like self pre-cooked, not from supermarket, but self pre-cooked sweet potatoes in the fridge. Because I'm at the moment on a complete sucker for just basically sweet potato mash as a base, and then all sorts of things thrown on top of that.
Have you ever taken the sweet potatoes out on the bike?
I have not taken the sweet potatoes out, no, but I have played around with eating baby potatoes, salted baby potatoes in races, which work super well for me.
Yeah. I've done it before with the sweet potatoes, because when you bake them, if you don't peel them, they will stay relatively solid. And yeah, again, it's like a little bit sweeter, but it's still a bit more of a slower release sort of carb. So it's another idea for you.
Definitely an interesting one. Yeah. No, it's a lot of playtime at the moment. I'm like starting to play more with baking my own little energy bars for on the road. So again, complete sucker for nut butters. So
Yeah.
just basically oats, nut butter, couple of things, turn that into bars or little bowls, and have those out on the ride. And yeah, it's fun.
Awesome. So yeah, it sounds like you've made it's sort of using that, like the Supersapiens has sort of made you realize a lot about how food is interacting with your body and making changes that not help you not only just now, but like long term for your life as well.
The greatest thing, it's more even just of a reminder. I mean, none of that stuff is rocket science. It's things I'm relearning, I'm reevaluating. It's stuff I basically all knew, but creature of habit, been sucked in by like the life we have and what society dictates us, and advertising candy and everything at every corner. And you know, it's just gotten back into that not so good habit. And this is just a great reminder of like, okay, it takes a minimum effort to do something extra, but it's so much better for you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's cool. And so like with your plans this year, all the with the continents and everything, like what are you going to keep using the like the app through all of that period as well?
Yeah. So the plan is really to keep going the entire year on it and try out different things. I think it's an amazing learning experience. There's so many things I'm so eager to see if and how it influences the body and doesn't influence the body and so on.
Yeah.
So super keen on the data for myself and playing around, and really like I'm going to start working with their scientists and everything a lot now, because there is a project that potentially takes us to Antarctica next year in February, and there it really matters. I mean, there we're talking about food that, you know, there is no additional snacking. Like the rations that you have to schlep everything with you into the ice on a slab behind you. So there is no excess weight and everything. It needs to be dialed in the calories that you need, how the body responds to it, and it's going to be so much more detailed. You want food that keeps the body warm, doesn't cool it down, and all sorts of things. So basically working with them towards that goal and try to absolutely maximize it. Yeah.
Sounds like a good plan. Do you have any last words of wisdom about training or nutrition or anything before we finish up?
Just try out for yourself what works. Be smart about it. Put in the time to document a little bit on what you're eating, what the effects are. Again, quite nice with that app is just that you've got the diary in there where you can put food, sleep, stress, drinks, anything in there. But yeah, just play around with it. Just because it works for some people doesn't mean it works for you. You know, so that's really all it comes down to. And don't listen to the magazines and there's hardcore trends in that you need to go one way.
Great advice. Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, and we'll see you soon.